Welcome to Homebrew Master. I'm Sarah, and I'm your host and Brewmaster. On this show, we find homebrewers and give them the opportunity to work with a professional. They get to learn some of the science behind brewing while I try to up their homebrew game. Today we're brewing with Liz, and we're making an easy drinking ale with an orange finish. Later on, we'll be catching up with Barb from Backyard Brewing for the tasting. This is Homebrew Master. Welcome to Homebrew Master. I'm your host, Sarah. Today we're joined by Liz. Liz, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your history with brewing?
Well, I don't know if I've got much of a history with brewing, if I'm being honest.
Fair enough, fair enough.
I'm really excited to learn. I'm
Nice.
excited to find out about it. I do some theater in Hamilton. I've got a little independent theater company, and,
Nice.
I teach. So I don't actually know that much about brewing beer, but I love beer.
There you go. That is always the first step in becoming a brewer. So what beers do you like to drink?
I feel like I'm kind of dull when it comes to beer choices. Like I really love that kind of like lighter sort of
Easy drinking,
a nice summer easy drinking beer.
introductory beer would be what I like to call them.
Yes, fair enough.
Have you ever thought about adding any other flavors to your beers?
I've tried a few that I find kind of interesting. I kind of like a little bit like of an orangey taste.
Okay.
yeah.
So orange is actually one of the easiest flavors to get in there and keep it nice and subtle, so you're still getting that nice, easy drinking beer, but with just a hint of sort of fruity, citrusy flavors. So obviously, since you don't homebrew, you don't have any samples for us to try, but I did get a commercial sample for us to try today, and we can talk about what you like, what you don't like, what you would maybe change, and try and get this as personalized for you as we can.
Okay.
So what we've got here is just a light American lager. So easy drinking lawnmower beer, 4.5%. So when you're tasting beer, what we usually do, if you're gonna do a proper tasting, you wanna take a look at it first, and you wanna sort of comment on the color and clarity. Now, more and more with craft beer, we're not going for that crystal clear that we're all sort of used to. Craft beer is moving a little bit more into the haze. So if you see that, that's no longer considered a bad thing.
Okay.
Next thing we want to look at is the color. So this is just like a nice, pale gold, deep straw, effervescent. You can see all the bubbles going. You just want to look at things like the color and clarity before you smell and taste it. So you're trying not to bias your brain, right? You're just giving it little bits of information and building on them to give the full experience to you. So next we usually get the aroma. Now this beer is pretty cold, so it's not gonna have a ton of aroma.
I can smell a bit though.
Yeah, it's
That's
got
nice.
that little bit of malt character, nothing overpowering. Little teeny tiny hint of citrus in the background, but nothing overwhelming. And then the last thing, best part, is the actual tasting. So light and refreshing, minimal bitterness. We're just going for that easy drinking kind of option. Unlike wine, where you do the whole swirling it around in your mouth and a lot of people spit it out and so on and so forth, with beer, to actually get the full flavor profile, you do need to swallow. And once you've swallowed, you want to close your mouth and breathe out through your nose, because you have different sensory receptors in the top of your mouth. So there are certain flavors that will suddenly come out that you don't perceive when you're just holding it in your mouth. And in general, you're only gonna hold it in your mouth for a second. It's not like you're holding on to it and wait, it's not gonna change. The biggest thing you'll notice is that as beer warms up a bit, if it's fridge temperature, really, really cold, you won't be able to perceive as many of the flavors as you will as it warms up a few degrees. But you still want it nice and cold. This is an easy drinking beer. You don't want to be drinking it at room temperature. But yeah, you give it just a moment, and sometimes I'll just hold it in my hands like this if I'm really trying to get those aromas and flavors out, just to let your own body heat bring it up a little bit faster. Okay. But I mean, it's a nice warm day out today, so I don't think we have to work too hard on that part.
All right, let me try another one and see if I can get the hang of it.
And just don't forget, once you've taken your sip, close your mouth, breathe out through your nose. For me in particular on this beer, I get just a hint of grapefruit citrus when I do the breathing out part that I don't really taste when I'm just enjoying the beer. So that is the difference between enjoying and tasting, and they are very different.
No, fair enough. No, I think I got the grapefruit.
Fair enough.
I definitely
It is very subtle.
I feel like I got the citrus near the end.
Nice.
It's really smooth. Like that was very noticeable. And like you said, I could tell that it was less bitter than maybe even I'm used to.
Oh,
a little less
absolutely,
bitter. It's
absolutely.
really nice.
Yeah, because the lighter you go, especially with American light lagers, like the lighter you go on the spectrum, the less and less bitterness. You have sort of just enough to balance that malty sweetness or any citrus flavors that you're adding. So no one thing is overwhelming anything else. And I think that's what we're aiming for with your beer.
Sure thing.
Now, normally I'd talk to people about the different malts that we're using, but because we're using the malt extract, that's all done for us. So one thing we are going to talk about is the hops we're putting in. Now, you mentioned the idea of adding a little bit of fruity, citrusy flavor in there. You can get most of that out of your hops. So if we were trying out some malts right now, I'd get you to taste it and you can actually see the sort of flavor profiles it's going to add to your beer. You don't really want to taste hops because they're not that tasty on their own. But one thing you can do is called a hop rub. So if you smell it just as is, it just kind of smells green, maybe a little bit of fruitiness, but there isn't a ton going on. If you take one of these and actually rub it between your palms, the heat of your hands will release all of the essential oils, and then you'll really be able to see, once this hits the heat of the boil, what kind of flavors you're getting. And then you literally just smell your hands. And I think you'll notice when you do that all of a sudden you get this like, right? There's like this fruity, sort of tropical, but mellow still. We're not gonna be adding a ton. This isn't gonna overwhelm our flavors. It's just gonna be that hint, like the grapefruit, that you just get at the end of the beer.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Excellent. I'm so glad you like it. The only other thing I think we're gonna add is a little bit of orange peel, just to help make sure that that fruity flavor we're getting is more orange than anything else. And this, again, you probably don't want to taste, but you might want to have a little sniff. It almost smells like candy in some ways. It's like a citrusy, it's just a citrus bomb. I don't know any other way to describe it. You might take a sniff and see that you're perceiving something else than me.
It just kind of reminds me of like an orangey or like fruity tea.
Yeah,
almost.
Yeah, very much. A lot of the orange teas have the actual peel in there. So this is a sweet orange peel instead of a bitter orange peel because I don't want to like keep increasing the bitterness. We want to keep your beer nice and smooth and easy drinking.
So this is going to be good for me if it has orange juice.
Absolutely. You got your vitamin C and everything.
Perfect. That's all I wanted to hear. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How'd you get into brewing?
I actually got into it through cooking and then getting into the craft beer just as a craft beer enthusiast. I've always loved cooking. My mom loved cooking. I was never afraid of flavors and trying something new. And then my boyfriend and I got really into craft beer, started going around to all these different breweries. And we were at one and I remember the brewer saying to me, you know that you can do this at home, right? And I was like, well, I do now. And I went and I bought myself a kit and I made my first beer. And here we are about 8 years later, I'm running 2 breweries.
Fair enough.
All right, well, why don't we go make you a beer? We just want to make sure that all of the powder is dissolving into the water.
Like craft dinner.
Exactly.
Yep, gotcha.
Welcome back to Homebrew Master. We're about to brew an easy drinking ale with a hint of orange for first-time brewer Liz. Let's get started. So there's 3 main ways you can brew at home. Normally, I would do an all-grain brew. That's the longest, most complicated process. And what we would be doing now is called the mash-in, and that's basically combining grain with water, holding it at a specific temperature to get all your flavor and color, and your extract, which becomes alcohol eventually at the end. The step down from that is called a partial mash. So you use mostly extract where someone's already done that whole mash process for you, turned it into a powder or a liquid, bring that up to a boil, put some of your grains in just for extra color or flavor, and that's about it. Now what we're gonna do today is a full-on extract brew. So someone has done that whole first step for us. We're just going to mix this malt powder in with water, bring it up to a boil, and do the final stage in brewing.
So that's like my style of baking.
Right? It just make life nice and easy, get through it in like 2 hours tops, and then about a month later, you got yourself some beer.
My name is Liz, and I don't have any brewing history. I'm learning today for the first time. It's really exciting, though. It's pretty, I think it's a really cool thing to learn and something I'd be really interested in finding out more about. Today we are brewing an easy drinking pale ale, and Sarah is taking me through the easiest way of brewing, which is extract brewing, which is probably a good start for me.
So our water is up to a boil. We don't want to add the malt extract in right away because it's at a rolling boil. It's all going to boil over just because of all of this powder hitting the water. So I'm just going to turn this off while we get everything incorporated. So we'll just take our lid off, set it to the side. So Liz was looking to create an easy drinking ale with a little bit of an orange finish. She had never brewed before and really wanted the sort of introductory level brewing, so we went with dry malt extract. So that basically eliminates the whole first step, the mash, where you steep grain in water to get your sugars. That step has been completely done, and all you have to do is dissolve the dry malt extract into water. So we use 2.2 kilograms of a pale dry malt extract. Basically, if you're doing a 20-liter batch, it's more or less 1 pound of dry malt extract for every 1% of alcohol that you wanted. So we used about 5 pounds to get about a 5% beer. We just want to make sure that all of the powder is dissolving into the water.
Like craft dinner.
Exactly.
Yep, gotcha.
Now, the only trick with the malt extract is it's super sticky because this is basically all sugar. So once we get it as much mixed in as we can out of this bucket, we're just gonna add a little bit of water to the bucket just to get all of that goodness out and get it into your beer.
Well, I think it's appealing anytime you can learn to do something for yourself and not be reliant on going to the store to buy it. Having that skill set, I think, is always really handy. Plus, I imagine it's cheaper. I keep saying I'm going to save money by buying less beer, and every month I'm absolutely determined in my budget. And I think this is a good alternative because so far the not buying beer thing isn't working out for me. So I think learning to brew my own beer is probably a better step.
So as you can see, there's a whole bunch of the malt powder still stuck in here. So I like to have just a little bit of water on the side. We're just gonna wash this down so that we get all of those sugars and flavors into your final beer.
Gotcha.
Give that a quick swirl and add her in. There we go. So now I'm just gonna turn the fire back on. We're gonna bring it up to a boil and then we'll add our hops.
Nice.
All right, so fire's going. You can stop stirring. If you wanna just throw the spoon in our malt bucket here. And we'll just get that lid back on, and in about 2 minutes, that'll be back up to a boil.
It was really cool getting to sort of see the ingredients ahead of time. I didn't know anything about what kind of ingredients you put in beer, what that even kind of looks like, if I'm being honest. I'm absolutely brand new at it, so it was really neat to learn all of that. It was also really cool, Sarah took me through how you taste beer. I've got a little bit of experience with wine tasting, but other than that, I didn't actually really know what I should be even tasting for or looking for in it, so that was really neat to learn about.
So we're basically up to a boil. Just like when you're adding the malt extract, if you add your hops when you're at a rapid boil, it's gonna boil over, and then you've just got sticky hot liquid all over your pot. So just before we get up to a boil, we're gonna add our bittering hops in. Once it came to the boil, you're sort of going along as normal. So we still added 28 grams of 12% Centennial for the bitterness. Now, the alpha acids is the part that's actually going to get absorbed into solution during the boil and give you the bitterness to balance out the sweetness from the malt. The most important thing to remember for your hour-long boil is to keep your lid off. Now, not quite as important when you're using extract because most of these processes have been done for you, but there's always the risk that you're gonna end up with this off flavor that kind of smells and tastes like canned corn. No one really wants that in their beer. So you just leave your lid off, let it boil for an hour. So we'll set our timer and then we'll put in our finishing hops and this beer will be done in no time.
Working with Sarah was really amazing. She walked me through the steps, made it really easy for me. And it was really great getting to talk with her about what got her interested in brewing, and it made me then want to do it, right? It's neat when you meet somebody who's that passionate about what they do and cares that much about what they do. You can't help be inspired by that.
Okay, so we've been boiling for an hour now. We're almost done. First things first, we're just gonna turn off the heat. That's how you know the heat's off. We're gonna add our finishing hops. Now, because we've turned it off, you don't have to worry as much about it boiling over on you. As far as an aroma hop was concerned, that goes in at the end of the boil, and we use 28 grams of Idaho 7, which gives you a little bit of piney tropical and citrus aromas. Now, when you're doing this on a professional level, the next step would be a whirlpool. We don't have the capacity to do a whirlpool, so all I'm gonna do is literally grab my spoon and just give this a nice big stir. And this just makes sure that the hot wort is hitting all of the aspects of the hops, and we're just getting all those wonderful flavors that we talked about into solution. So we're just gonna let that spin for a moment, and that's really all you need to do. If you were trying to make more like an IPA like this at home, you'd really want to give this like a half hour of time to sort of steep and bring out all those flavors. But we're not going for anything super hoppy, so we're just gonna give it a few moments. Obviously, one of the things with the boil is it sanitizes everything. So on your cold side, which is when we're fermenting, everything has to be sanitized ahead of time and without heat, because at this point we want to start cooling things down. So you just use a no-rinse sanitizer. It breaks down into oxygen, really cheap and easy to use at home. So I've already done that. Everything on this side is sanitized. So part of making the process a little bit easier when you're using a dry malt extract is we actually only boiled 10 liters of water. So once we were done adding our hops and we were ready to cool things down, we could add another 10 liters of cold water, and then you don't have to use a wort chiller or go through any process to cool your wort down other than just topping it up with cold, natural spring water. And you just want to pour it in nice and slow so you're not worrying about anything bouncing back at you and spitting up. And what this does is it brings it down to temperature so you're good to pitch your yeast. It also makes sure that you don't have to worry about shocking the glass of your carboy and having that break on you. I think Liz learned a lot, absolutely. Anyone who's never brewed before, going through the process, even the simple process of a dry malt extract beer or a liquid malt extract or any kind of malt extract, you learn the basics of the entire process. That's how I started making beer, was with the malt extracts. And once I started to learn that there's only so much you can manipulate with them to get the kind of beer you wanted, that's when I really started to step it up and get into the full all-grain brewing.
I'm really excited to try the beer that we brewed today. I think it's just really cool to have brewed a beer that's tailored to me and my tastes. So that's exciting all by itself.
And the last thing we're going to put in place is just our airlock.
Sure.
So this is just going to allow during fermentation for CO2 to escape, but no oxygen to get in. So at this point, all we have left to do is pitch our yeast, wait a couple weeks, and we got ourselves some beer. So for fermentation, I went with a Voskvik. So a Kvik is a Norwegian ale yeast. What I really like about it is that you can ferment at a much higher temperature than you can with sort of traditional North American or European ale and lager yeasts. So we pitched at 35 degrees and the fermentation was done in about 4 days. Now the Voskvik actually gives you some of those orange and citrus flavors that we were looking for. And once the fermentation was complete, I actually added about 30 grams of sweet orange peel and just let the beer sit on that for about another week just to help pull out some of those bitter and citrus flavors that Liz was looking for. And of course, the best part, let's give it a taste.
Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Homebrewer Liz's easy drinking ale with a hint of orange is finished fermenting, aging, and carbonating. Let's give this beer a taste. Welcome back to Brewmaster. All of our beers are done and we're ready for the moment everyone's been waiting for, the tasting. Our guest taster today is Barb Rideout, one of the owners of Backyard Brewing, and she happens to be my business partner. And today we're working with homebrewer Liz. Thanks for joining us. Barb, why don't you tell us a little bit about Backyard?
So Backyard Brewing is a little bit different in the fact that we specialize in one-off beers, and we never brew the same beer twice. So we're strictly small batch, which makes us a little bit unique. We don't want to be big. We want to be small. We want to focus on quality beers, local product, and local flavors. We have different styles, so we're very promiscuous in our beers. We really enjoy different beers all the time, and I don't have a favorite. I love all beer. All beer is good. So we have different styles. Each of us has our own favorites. I'm a dark, so we have something dark. Sarah's a something funky. So
I love me some funky beers.
So, and then we have Craig, our owner. He is a something hoppy. My husband John is an owner, and he is something easy. And then we have something else because we always like something else after that. So we started. We actually made our first brew in February of this year. So we are very, very new. We are small. So we're more like a nano brewery. We again focus on quality flavors. We are currently in the process of opening a bottle shop or retail outlet at our house. So hopefully that will progress very soon. And then our goal down the road is to have a tasting room, just where you can come taste and you can buy, and then you can wander off and drink your beer.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty much covers it all. So Liz had never brewed before, so we decided to start with an malt extract brew. And we're going for an easy drinking ale. And we decided just to make it a little more interesting, we would add some orange peel to that, try to give it a little bit of orangey flavor. So what are your feelings on a beer like that? I know it's not a specific style that we're talking about, but just sort of an easy drinking beer with a little bit of hop and a little bit of orange going on.
So for me, I think that sounds great. Like I'm not really a fan of the bitterness. I really appreciate the aroma and the flavor of the hops, but not really the bitterness, that heavy bitterness. Also with the orange, I like the flavor of like a little bit of the pith, but not a lot of the pith, right? And if you can get a lot of the orange flavor coming through without the sweetness or anything like that, with the just the essence of the fruit is really, really nice as well.
I feel exactly the same way. So let's try this beer. All right, so let's give this beer a taste. So normally when we're doing a tasting, we like to start by looking at the color.
Which is beautiful.
It is, isn't it?
It is. It's lovely.
Which is surprising for a malt extract because I had no control over the color.
Yep.
But it actually looks kind of orange, which
yep.
I was pretty happy about. And we got that nice rocky head going on.
Exactly.
So let's give it a sniff.
I'd like to say the color was something that was my doing, but that would have been good luck.
Smell is lovely. You're really getting that orange coming out.
I know, it's a real big orange bomb,
it is.
isn't it?
Yeah.
And we did use...
And even in the wind, I can smell this, which is amazing, right?
Amazing.
Yeah.
We also used one of the Kvike yeast that has a little bit of that orange flavor to it as well.
Yep.
So I feel like that combined with the hops that we picked in the orange peel really, really brought out that aroma. And of course, the best part, let's give it a taste.
Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers. Very nice.
Yeah, I'm really glad you got me to add the orange to it. Like, I think that really brings out the taste for sure.
It seems to just sort of balance everything else really nicely. And you get a bit of that pithy bitterness.
You do, but it's not overpowering. It's it's nicely balanced.
So if you could change anything about it, would you? Would you want more bitterness, or would you want more orange or less orange?
Honestly, I think I'd keep the orange the same. Like, I quite like that, and it's really smooth going down. So
it is.
I don't think I would change anything about it. I really like it.
Fair enough. I'm very glad you enjoyed it. I mean, you could definitely play with that bitterness if you do like that part. Lean it more towards the hop bitterness, lean it away, because this is definitely more, I would say, that citrusy bitterness that you're getting than like a true hop bitterness. So you could play with those. And if you're doing extract, I mean, you know how the color's going to turn out. We're pretty happy with that. And even the head retention, like I said, I haven't brewed an extract. I can't even tell you the last time I brewed an extract beer. So I am ecstatic with how this one turned out.
Yeah, no, thank you. That was pretty cool to get the chance to do that.
Awesome. So thank you both so much for joining us. I'm really glad you both enjoyed the beer, and it's been great.
I think it's great. It's kind of exciting to feel like you could actually make a beer this good that's to my taste. Is really neat. So very cool experience.